Hello.
Yo.
Hey, Vaush. Good to finally talk to you. I've listened to your content for a while. You kept me from being bored at work many times, so thanks for that.
I listen to my own content pretty often too.
Right on. So I wanted to ask you about guns and revolution. Just a disclaimer, because I don't want to get you in trouble or anything. I'm talking like strictly theoretical. Political violence is bad,
Hmm.
all that. So my understanding of your take on guns is that you believe like there's going to be a coming revolution in developed nations because of like growing wealth inequality and like the effects of climate change is going to have on having a refugee crisis and all that,
Hmm.
and the working class should be armed in preparation for that kind of thing. Is that a pretty accurate characterization?
Essentially, yes.
Okay, so yeah, I wanted to ask. So the way I imagine like a revolution, like in a developed country, would be sorry, it would be like pretty different than anything that's ever happened before. Like it's not going to be like 1917, like Red Army in the Kremlin, or like in a
Yeah.
poor country like Rojava. Um, so I would imagine that something like happening in a developed nation would be like the United States would be way different than anything we've seen before. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so given that's the case, like we don't really know what a revolution would actually look like in a developed nation. Like I would imagine maybe something like general strikes or like more aggressive protesting and probably like cyber warfare, like Edward Snowden, anonymous type things. So given that, the whole like preparing to arm yourself for a coming revolution in like real world politics feels kind of larpy to me, given like the real world harm it seems like having so many guns has in the United States. So I just wanted to know what your perspective was on that.
Well, if we're just looking at the calculus of the situation, if you imagine that not collective, sorry, proletarian ownership of firearms could eventually prevent our country from falling towards fascism and then bring about a socialist revolution, we're potentially gambling with hundreds of millions of lives then and billions of lives from that point forward. This is one of those big civilizational changes that I think immediate sacrifices are worthwhile. That being said, I don't think that the existence of guns as it stands causes as many problems for this country as many people seem to believe it does. When I think of what causes gun, so for example, gun crime in this country, most of it not exactly happening in highfalutin, wealthy neighborhoods. Usually, it's being done in the projects, and usually it's being done between gangs that have guns so they can defend their territory that they defend because there's stuff worth defending on it, like drugs they buy from cartel merchants and then transport into the U.S. Ultimately, much of the gun death in this country stems from the drug war, which was a deliberate collection of policies brought about to exacerbate the oppression of people of color, particularly black people. I think that there are ways for us to substantially reduce the amount of gun death in this country without taking away guns from good, honest citizens. Getting rid of the drug war, it's a big one. Getting rid of the NRA. The NRA is run by lunatics who unironically push like hyper chauvinistic propaganda about how owning a gun is like getting a fucking penis extension, who fearmonger relentlessly about immigrants and Democrats and Obama's ghost coming to take your weapons. The NRA is a piece of shit organization that should be obliterated, unquestionably. Likewise, if we do more to address toxic masculinity, there's a reason why many of these gun deaths are taken, are committed by men. This would also go a long way towards reducing the suicide rate with guns because suicidality is highest, I think, amongst white men. Guns are a very effective way of killing yourself, as it so happens. Ultimately, I think there are a lot of factors here that share comorbidity with gun deaths that we can address without necessarily impeding our Second Amendment rights. And that's important to me because I do believe that even if there's a 10% chance that widespread gun ownership will eventually be a necessity in preventing some kind of authoritarian takeover in this country, I think that's a worthwhile bet to take.
Okay, makes sense. Can I ask a quick follow up question?
Sure.
So in Canada, they have like what is it? They have gun licensing. Like you have to go through a process. You have to like take a written test as well as like a test to show you're like competent with guns. And I could be mistaken. I think they might even have like some mental health screening kind of thing going on. So I want to ask, does that seem like something you would be on board with if we did licensing here in the United States?
I'm not necessarily opposed to licensing as long as I don't know how many gun deaths are caused by improper use of guns, you know? I don't know how many lives that would save. I guess it would save some lives. How many lives could it hurt? I would be
Well,
okay with that as long as it didn't give the government the ability or opportunity to prevent people's acquisition of firearms if they were in a different political class, racial group, something like that. As long as it isn't something the government could use to means test firearm ownership.
okay, yeah, that makes sense. Well, yeah, that's all I had, Vosh. Thanks for talking to me. Keep up the good work. Please don't get COVID.
Doing my best. Don't leave the house that much anyway.